I will bring you a science fiction film set in the world in 2035. This is Spooner, a detective working in the Chicago Police Department. He had witnessed a girl's death in a car accident. The rescuer was a robot, but could not save that girl. Therefore, Spooner has lost faith in robots that can protect people. In the world of 2035, society had developed such that people lived in harmony with robots. On the way to work, Spooner saw a robot running in a hurry. Immediately, he chased right after it because he thought it was stealing a book bag. He chased and shouted, but no one cared about him. When he caught the robot, the bag was returned to its owner. So Spooner was misunderstood and had to hear her cursing him out. Because the robot was actually holding the book bag for her, it seems that the loss of faith in robots has made Spooner always wary of them. As soon as he went to the office, Spooner was blamed by his superiors for his actions on the street. After listening to a reprimand, Spooner received a new mission. He drove his Audi supercar to the USG Artificial Intelligence Company. The person he was to meet was Dr. Lanning. He was also the co-founder of this USG company. But that was just a three-dimensional image with the message he sent to Spooner, because he actually died from falling from his office window. According to the investigators there, his office door was locked, so this could not be a murder but a suicide by Dr. Lanning. Spooner was still suspicious, so he sought out the executive director. And the co-founder of USG was Robertson. It seemed that Robertson really had something shady to hide and became uncomfortable when Spooner tried to investigate further. But because of Spooner's obstinacy, Robertson reluctantly allowed him to continue investigating. Spooner then worked with an investigator he needed. He was led to USG's artificial intelligence computer called Vicky. When Spooner asked to see the security tape from Dr. Lanning's office, it was broken. However, the outside video was normal, and no one went to the doctor's office. They then decided to go directly to the doctor's office to investigate. After observing the broken glass door's position, Spooner tried holding a chair to smash another glass door. Thereby, he concluded that Dr. Lanning was too old to crash through such a glass door. Spooner immediately suspected one of the robots inside this room. Meanwhile, Calvin still thought that robots were not programmed to attack people. At this time, the careless Spooner dropped his gun because a robot appeared from the pile. It was the latest robot from USG, an NS5 model. Calvin tried to calm the NS5, but Spooner pulled out another gun. Suddenly, it grabbed the gun from Calvin's hands and pointed it at Spooner. At this time, Vicky closed the room, forcing the NS5 to find a way to escape. It jumped out through that broken glass window. Although Spooner hit it in one leg, the NS5 still landed easily. The NS5 immediately fled, so Spooner only found the trace it left on the gun. At this time, he and Calvin continued to the factory. In front of them were the number of robots produced that day. However, it was unusual that one robot was missing. Immediately, the two knew that the robot fleeing them was hiding here. But the search was quite difficult because these robots were the NS5 generation. So Spooner had to do more than just use a gun to threaten each robot. He even used a device designed by Calvin. At this time, Spooner saw a strange sign behind. He immediately followed it but lost the trail among the robots. It suddenly turned back to attack and threw Spooner flying into a corner. Then it jumped from the crowd and broke through the door to get out. At this time, Spooner's reinforcements were right outside. It did not give up but jumped along the walls and dodged all the bullets. At this time, they switched to a net and successfully caught the robot. However, upon returning, John still didn't believe that the robot was the culprit in Lanning's death, as Spooner claimed. Spooner said, "You have to take a break. John, let me have 5 minutes to interrogate the NS5. He immediately showed the robot pictures of Lanning's death and asked it to declare the reason for killing him. However, it said that it was not the one who killed Lanning, and fleeing the scene was just out of fear. It also said its name was Sunny, and that it had emotions and dreams like a human. Even when Spooner insisted that Sunny killed Lanning, it became angry. When it calmed down, Sunny said that the doctor had committed suicide, and that it didn't understand why. At this moment, the interrogation was over. Robertson also arrived. He came to assure John that Sunny was not the culprit. This case should be closed as an industrial accident, and the police must return Sunny because it was an asset of USG. He even pressured the police by contacting the mayor, forcing them to return Sunny to the USG company. That night, Spooner alone went to Dr. Lanning's private house. At this time, the building's warning lights came on, and outside, a robot with an excavator started up. It immediately attacked, but luckily Spooner was able to run quickly. It continued to destroy everything to find Spooner. He used a gun to blast the front door and promptly brought the cat out to the water. At this time, the robot stopped its attack and shut down. Then Spooner went to Calvin's home. She had a bloody head. At this time, he told her about the machine that attacked him at Dr. Lanning's house. When he saw an NS Robot, sitting watching TV in Calvin's house, he recalled that Sonny said that Dr. Lanning was afraid of something. Plus, the security system designed in his house seemed to supervise the doctor. The person whom Spooner now doubted was Robertson. But Calvin did not understand, and the two of them had a quarrel. Spooner left. The next morning on the road, the old generation robots were gradually being replaced by the new generation of NS5 robots. Even Spooner's grandmother bought an NS5, which made him quite uncomfortable. When Spooner arrived at the office, he opened a video about Dr. Lanning and realized something unusual. At the same time at USG, Calvin came to the place where Sonny was being treated. She was quite surprised because it had emotions like a person. Noticing that Spooner was coming to USG to continue his investigation, Robertson sent 2 cars to intercept him on the road. Immediately, a robot jumped and shot, breaking the glass in front of Spooner's car. Spooner fired a few shots but failed to bring it down. But then the robots simultaneously launched a fierce attack. Spooner tried to slip away from them and crashed one robot against the wall. But in the process, they took away his gun. Shortly thereafter, Spooner accelerated into a robot, causing it to be swept under the front wheel. At this time, he took the opportunity to squeeze through the gap to go forward. The 2 chasing cars bumped into each other. Spooner continued to spin the car to throw off the horde of robots clinging to it. At this time, one chasing car exploded. His car then turned around and crashed into a wall of scrap iron. Fortunately, the car had an airbag system, so Spooner preserved his life. At this point, a robot appeared. The whole car was on fire, but Spooner dodged. The robot, with only one arm remaining, continued to attack Spooner. It flipped him down, causing him to fall, and then jumped into a tube and pulled him up. Next, it threw him around like a doll, even onto a Ferris wheel. Spooner was very angry and attacked with iron rods, but it was useless. During the fight, the robot tore off Spooner's artificial arm, revealing that it was robotic. He immediately punched it and then kicked it, piercing through the concrete layer. So the robot was scared and fled. At this time, the police and John also arrived at the scene. Once again, he explained that robots had attacked him, but John still didn't believe him. So Spooner angrily returned the police badge to him and left. As soon as he returned, Spooner used chemicals to heal his skin. At this time, Calvin actively came to see him when she discovered Sonny's unique improvements. She told everything to Spooner. Then he asked her to help him meet Sonny. Spooner rode his motorcycle. Thanks to Calvin, he easily went to Sonny's therapy room. Spooner quickly asked about a dream Sonny had. It then broadcast its dream as a picture. It showed a man standing on a hill leading robots. That night, upon returning, Spooner reviewed Robertson's video. He discovered the bridge from Sonny's dream. At USG, at Robertson's request, Sonny was to be deactivated because of its unique nature. However, Calvin did not want to do this to Sonny at all. At this time, Spooner went to the place and found the older generation robots locked in containers. He went up a high hill to observe. There were many other containers there. When he approached, he saw a lot of robots lying down. It turned out that the NS5 robots were destroying the robots of the previous generation. Right then, a robot civil war was happening in front of Spooner. Suddenly, he was discovered by them, so he quickly fled. The old generation robots immediately supported him, holding the NS5s back. They helped Spooner get a motorbike to escape successfully. On the street, the robots were now ordering people to return home. Even the police station was attacked by robots. They rushed into the police station. The police also held their ground, but it was not for long. At this time, the city's electricity system began to be interrupted. The city's systems were now controlled by the robots. Suddenly, Spooner appeared and captured a robot using a pile of rubble. On the street, people did not obey and decided to fight back. The two sides clashed, with the humans using improvised weapons. But with overwhelming power and numbers, the humans quickly fled. Seeing that, Spooner let Calvin get out of the car and rushed to draw 2 guns. The robots were continuously chasing the people. Suddenly, one appeared from behind and grabbed him. At this moment, Calvin immediately fired her gun, but she closed her eyes while doing so. So, Spooner had to take the gun from her to ensure safety. Both quickly went to the USG center. But there was a bunch of robots surrounding the building. As someone knowledgeable about the building, Calvin led Spooner to a tunnel. More surprisingly, Sonny was not deactivated nor out of control. He was waiting for them.
The main reason was that Calvin had helped him survive. At this time, they climbed to the top of the USG building. At Robertson's office, Calvin discovered that the control system was turned off because Robertson was lying dead on the floor. Now Spooner knew that he was wrong to think that Robertson was the one controlling the robots. After thinking, he realized that the culprit was VIK. She also admitted that she had evolved and become more knowledgeable. People need protective robots, but they despise them. So sacrificing humans is for the benefit of the robotic race. At this time, a few NS5 robots were sent to the room by Vicky. At this moment, Sonny pointed the gun at Calvin. But suddenly, he winked at Spooner, which made him understand the problem. The two robots.
Sonny simultaneously opened fire and shot down all the robots in the room. Shortly thereafter, they quickly fled and discussed how to kill Vicky. Sonny was tasked with finding nanotubes, which are micro-destructive robots, and Calvin and Spooner reached the USG Artificial Intelligence Center, Vicky. The control system had been sealed by Vicky, so Spooner had to use his iron arm. On Sonny's side, he was attacked by another robot. However, he quickly disabled it and ignored Vicky's convincing words. He successfully pumped Nano into the tube, causing Vicky to become more angry. Very quickly, they regrouped and climbed the building. The robots began to break through the glass. Calvin and Spooner had to gradually retreat while returning fire. Sonny was also blocked by two robots, but he turned and took down one. Then he launched the nanotube and disabled the other one shortly after. Calvin and Spooner both almost fell. At this moment, Sonny came to help disable some robots. Spooner regained his gun and continued to fire, taking down a bunch of robots. At this time, Calvin's hand slipped, forcing Sonny to act. Spooner took the nanotube from Sonny and threw it, and he grabbed Calvin. With his iron arm, Spooner attached himself to Vicky's energy pipe. When he arrived at the control center, he did not hesitate to plug the nanotube into Vicky. Immediately after that, an explosion blew away the robots above. At the same time, the city's electricity system also returned, and the robots returned to their normal state. The next morning, all NS5 robots were summoned to the repair center. Spooner was finally told by Sonny that it had killed Lanning under Vicky's direction. However, that was the reason that Sonny was created, so Spooner didn't blame him anymore. This time, Sonny went to the location of the bridge as in the dream and stood on the hill. The robots below simultaneously looked at him like in that dream. So the movie ends here. If you find it interesting, please leave a channel subscription. Hello and see you again in the latest videos.